Welcome to Office Hours by Triple X Church. I'm your host, Carl Thomas. I'm a pastor, certified neurohealth coach, and a guy who frankly struggled with a lot of the stuff we talk about here for over 20 years until I found freedom about a decade ago. In today's episode, we are going to be jumping in and answering this question. Is the temptation to lust something that is going to continue for the rest of my life? That's what I'll be discussing today, so make sure you hang in there with me. Recognize that no questions are ever off the table, and I'm going to be as honest with my answers as I possibly can be, so don't get offended. Without any further delay, let's jump in. Okay, so this question came in to our Office Hours page. Hello, I am 26 years old. I have been happily married for over 5 years now. I've come a long way in my journey with sexual sin. I am currently walking in freedom. However, I still deal with temptations to lust after women sometimes. I would say these temptations come a few times a week. I do not frequently give in to the temptations, but they are still present. Is this something that is going to continue for the rest of my life? Do temptations to lust ever fully go away? Is it normal to still be experiencing temptations to lust whenever I have overcome this sin? Does it point to some sort of heart issue? Please help me. Okay, so this is a great question. Obviously, the topic of lust is a big one. We see guys talking about it all the time because lust is the precursor to a lot of the things we deal with, right? You start lusting, then you go to porn. You start lusting and fantasizing, you go masturbate, whatever. So lust is a big issue. Couple things here that I want to address, all right? First, this idea of is it normal for me to have the temptation to lust? Yes, it is, okay? That doesn't mean that it's normal for you to lust, all right? There's this philosophy out there that all guys lust. That's just absolutely not true, all right? Many men do fall into lust. There are many men who don't, okay? It's not a foregone conclusion that if you're a man, you will lust. But is the temptation to lust always going to be there? Of course. It's just like any temptation. Any temptation is always going to be there given the right situation. Take lying, for instance, okay? I'm not a liar, right? I wouldn't call myself a liar. But when I get into a situation where maybe I put my foot in my mouth and I get called out for it, right? Is there a temptation to lie sometimes? Of course there is, right? You're thinking to yourself, gosh, if I just lie here, maybe I don't have to go through this uncomfortable moment. But then I remind myself of who I am, what I value, what I claim to value, and I decide, hey, I just got to do the hard thing here and not lie and tell the truth and deal with the consequences, right? So kind of the same thing. We are all tempted to consume, right? Our brains want what it likes, right? So if you see an attractive woman, there's nothing wrong with attraction, okay? You see a beautiful woman, you think to yourself, wow, she is attractive. At that point, there is a temptation. Do I start to consume her, i.e. lust after her, right? Fantasize? Or do I recognize that she is a whole being, right? That God made. And she's got a mind and a body and a soul and a family and a story. And God loves her and she doesn't deserve that objectification, right? She doesn't deserve to be consumed by me. You have a choice to make. And so the temptation's there. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you because you have that thought comes in your mind, hey, I could consume her, right? What's good is that you say, no, that's not what I'm about. That's not what she's about. That's not what God's about. I'm not going to do that. And then you do whatever you do, right? So will the temptation ever go away? No, because it's always going to be an option, all right? But is it a foregone conclusion that you're going to struggle with lust all your life? Absolutely not. And does it point to a heart issue? The temptation doesn't necessarily point to a heart issue, but the lusting does, right? So when you have that temptation, you just succumb to it, yeah, it points to a heart issue in terms of how you view women, how you view others, right? They're there for my consumption, all right? Now, if you're a guy who maybe isn't as far in his journey of freedom as you are, I would say sometimes this might look a little different, right? So you see a woman, you're not walking free at this point. And so the urge to consume her is very large, right? It's great. And you're like, I know what I want to do. You still have that option to sit there and think, is that what I'm about? No. Is that what I want to be about? No. Okay, so what am I going to do here? Well, because she doesn't deserve to be objectified. She doesn't deserve to be consumed by me. I'm going to direct my attention elsewhere out of respect for her. And I know what you're thinking. That sounds a lot like, oh yeah, I get it, bouncing your eyes. No, very different, right? The idea of bouncing your eyes is this instinctive reflex that I see a hot woman, I look away. I see a hot woman, I look away, right? There's no thought process. It's just this knee-jerk reaction, which, quite honestly, still is objectifying the person you're looking at. If you're not looking away, you're objectifying them by seeing them as a being for sexual gratification, right? When you're looking at them and bouncing your eyes real quickly as a reflex, you're still objectifying them, but now you're seeing them as an object of temptation. You're still not seeing them as a real person, all right? What I'm talking about is you're going through the mental process, the intentional mental process of looking at someone, realizing who they are, recognizing their beauty, recognizing that God created them and that they deserve to not be consumed, to not be objectified, and you're making the intentional decision to not do so. So because you're still early in your journey, right, I'm going to divert my attention elsewhere so it doesn't happen. Very different, okay? I know it sounds a lot like, but it's not. One's very intentional. You're thinking through your values. You're thinking through what you claim to value, at least, right? The other one is just an instinctual, I can't look at that, all right? So anyway, I hope that helps clarify some things. Unfortunately, I think in the Christian world, a lot of times we tend to beat ourselves up unneededly because we're dealing with things that are just kind of a natural part of life. Temptation is a part of life, all right? The fact that that opportunity to do the wrong thing is always there is not your fault, right? There's plenty of temptations. Some are a little higher on our radar system than others because of our past, because of things we've dealt with, I agree. But the temptation doesn't make you a bad person, okay? It's what you do from that point on that determines the person you want to be. So anyway, if you have a question for me and you would like me to answer it sometime, go to triplexchurch.com/office-hours. Submit your question there and I will answer it in an upcoming episode. Until then, folks, have a great week.